Welcome to this UFC fight night, Borralho versus Imavov in Paris this weekend. I'm going to go through the main card, pick the fighter I think will win and the way they'll win it, and just take you through the fight. So getting off with the first fight on the main card, Pitbull versus Keita. Pitbull obviously coming to the UFC, hasn't done amazingly well. I don't think, lost against Yair Rodriguez, which isn't great, but Keita coming into the UFC now, really two people who've only just been, in a sense, Keita would be first fight, but Pitbull is quite new to the UFC as well. Pitbull showed in his fights it's hard to come up to the UFC. It's difficult. There is that big step on, as we always see with a lot of fighters. There's only a handful that come into the UFC and go, yeah, I'm at a super high level, especially when they're coming in as champions and they're being put into top 10 fights straight off the bat. There's very little fighters you actually see that actually make that work. Lost against Yair Rodriguez, but won against Dan Ige, who's a really good fighter, will catch a lot of people off guard if they're not careful. But Pitbull is 38 years old, coming into the UFC very late in his career, compared to 27-year-old Keita, who is looking to pressure, is looking to go forward, is looking to put you in corners and throw hands. I do think age is a big factor in the featherweight division. I think at 38 it becomes a right problem that you're not as fast, you haven't got the durability as much as a 27-year-old. Look, there's 10-11 years there between the two of them. And at these lower weight classes, that is a big problem for, 10 years, 17 to 27 is less bad because experience versus youth, in the sense of it. Your speed will probably be slightly better at 17, but at 27, you probably got more experience in the cage. At 38 versus 27, that is a real problem where it starts very much, age diminishes your ability, your speed lessening to a point where actually it doesn't matter if you're smarter. The fact you've got less speed means it just gets to the point where you're so much slower than these guys that it doesn't matter. You can outthink them because they can just jab your head off and throw punches through your guard, and actually you can't do things fast enough to stop them. And I do think that's going to be a right problem with Keita. He comes forward, he pressures, he's looking to throw a lot, and he will do. He's looking to push you back, and I think there's going to be heavy breathing from Pitbull quite soon in this fight, sooner than you think. I fully expect we're getting pressed back with all the things he's got to think about, going, how do I get out of this situation? How do I get offense? How do I win a round? It's going to be a right issue for him throughout this fight, and I think Keita gets it done by KO TKO. I think he slumps him. I think he gets in close, gets the pressure on, fakes a shot to the body probably, and throws a hook, drops him, and just starts throwing off. And I think that's all he needs, and that's how he's won. Keita has done that throughout his career, getting pressure on and throwing hands. So I think that's how it's going to go against a Pitbull who's aging in the division. 38 years old at featherweight is not great age, and you get found out quite quickly when your speed goes at that age. It can be one, he could still be all right in this fight. He could still win this fight, but next fight, does it suddenly collapse? It could do, and I do think that is a key problem at that age, at these lower weight classes. On to the next fight, Rhys McKee versus Salsa. Axel Salsa coming into the UFC, obviously from his first fight in the UFC. Now McKee came in, I think, a couple of years ago now. 2023 was his first fight in the UFC. Looking at it now, came in from Cage Warriors, was a champion there, but since then he's had two fights, in one in 23, one in 24, and he hasn't really set the world alight recently. I think that's the real issue that I've got with Rhys McKee. I think it's become a problem. I think he did well in his last fight, which was in 2025, was in April, but when he has lost, he took it, he came in at 2023, sorry, not at 23, lost his fight in September 23, then fought in March 24, lost, Then he's now, more than a year on, has won his last fight by doctor stoppage, which was a real, a great win, a doctor stoppage, but he just dropped him several times in the first round as well. And his size he's quite big. He's a big guy for the division. He's got good obviously punching power. He's dropping people like that. But do I think he's really got this? I think, look, you can see the difference, and I know I keep going back to this point, and you'll hear this throughout any of my previews, is that, look, there is a big step on from going from it doesn't matter what it is, any MMA organisation to the UFC. Axel Solskjaer, we'll find that out this fight. But I do think he gets it done. I think McKee has come in. I think he's struggled. And so I do think it's two people who are sort of in that sort of limbo of going, like, we're sort of in between good enough to be out of Cage Warriors, out of other organisations, looking towards the UFC, but probably need a bit more experience to actually fully develop in the UFC and really get on a good run. Because that's what you want to do. You want to get in the UFC and get a good few wins under your belt to start looking towards top 15. Rhys McKee hasn't done that. And as Solskjaer, I think he's going to get it to the ground. I think he had more defences outside the UFC before he came. He had 4 defences of his title. I think that helps. I think it really does. It just gains a bit more experience of different fight styles, different people. It shows you can do it again and again and again. And I think that's key. I think McKee had less. I think he only had 1 defence before he got signed to the UFC. And just lack of activity. I think there's been a lack of activity. Okay, this is his second fight for 2025. Which is good. You should, when you first start in the UFC, you should be trying at least to try and get 2 or 3 fights a year. But 2023, 1 fight. 24, 1 fight in the UFC. Okay, I think he had another fight outside the UFC in 23, because that's when he got signed. But 24, having 1 fight, you lost, and, I don't know if it was due to injury, but even if it is, it just doesn't look good on paper to be not in a fight. When you just signed, you need to be in constant fights. You need to gain that experience quite quickly, win, lose or draw. That's the key. You need to get up that division. And if you've only had 1 defensive title outside of the UFC, you need to push. You're going to probably lose, and you're probably going to see that there's a big step on. But look, you have to get in there and really, train for fights. That's the key bit. Get in the gym and do them training camps to get into fights and understand how your body needs to be 3 weeks out from a fight, 1 week out from a fight, 2 weeks out from a fight, and actually understand that actually what's the level of my fitness and everything has to be 10 times better now I'm in the UFC, and how do I get there? And it's key you start going through them gym training camps to really understand how you need to prepare and what you need to get. Do I need a nutritionist? Do I need X? Do I need to improve Y? What am I struggling with? And where do I need to improve? I think McKee, when you see him, he's a big guy, big frame, big power. He's a bit raw. I'd say he's a bit raw for the UFC. If you're looking at UFC fighters who are looking towards the top 15, I think he's a bit raw. I think Solskjaer will get him to the ground, and I think that'll be a lot more clean. I don't think he's not spectacular on the feet. I think McKee wins it if it stays on the feet, but I think ground game, Solskjaer gets it down round 1, and then McKee, I think he's just a bit lack of experience, I'd say, for McKee in these type of UFC big fights against, this is like bigger level than he's ever fought. And I think he's going to get found out a bit that, look, you need the well-rounded game. You can't just be a big guy like you sort of couldn't in the lower, the Cage Warriors, in the sense of it, the lower sort of organisation of fighters that everyone's aiming to get signed by the UFC. You won that, but your experience in your rounded game isn't there. Solskjaer will get round 1 down to the ground, I think, control him, get 10-9. And then, look, you got 2 rounds. You need to win both, and Rhys is going to have to push, which is going to be a right problem for him. He's going to push, and he's going to get taken down again, controlled again. The frustration's going to kick in, and he could be caught in anything here. I think he'll get caught. It could be... I don't want to say... It could be submission or ground and pound. but it will be on the ground, I believe. I think Reese gets caught in something. I think if I had to say it, he could just get caught in a submission, trying to move out the way, but easily enough, he could just be ground and pounded. He tries to move, get caught in a position, crucifix. Solskjaer loves that, and start getting ground and pounded out. I think it's probably more a submission. If I had to put my name on something, it'd be a submission by Solskjaer. But just by Reece McKee just rushing to try and get out of something, just get caught. It's just one of them submissions that you just run yourself into, and you need to slow down and just take your time to get back up safely. On to the next fight, Oki versus Mason Jones. Oki obviously lost in 2024 against Chris Duncan by guillotine, which wasn't great, but look, is what it is. It's a tough fight. And then had a couple, and basically is a year out from that now onto this Mason Jones fight. Will just be under a year from that Chris Duncan fight. Obviously won in May in a decision on the fight night, which we won't really talk about. It was a fight he should have won, I think. Mason Jones, obviously in the UFC now, got his first fight back in the UFC in May 25 against Jeremy Stephens, and won it. Jeremy Stephens, you should be winning though. To be honest, if you're coming into the UFC again, Jeremy Stephens, you should be winning that, and if you're not, that's a problem. But came into the UFC from Cage Warriors originally back in 2021. Lost a lot, didn't really win much. I think he had 4 fights, four fights, and out of them 4 fights, it was a loss, or 2 losses, a no contest, and a win. So you're 1 win, 1 no contest, 2 losses. It doesn't look great, and especially how spread out them fights were, especially after COVID. Even then, in 21, January lost, no contest June, and then you're going all the way to October. So it's not really that spread out, but just wasn't great at all. You're doing a lot in 1 year. You've lost. You got a no contest. Where's the break? You probably need a break. It's in COVID. It's hard for me to say that now, when they need to earn. Clearly, you want to earn money. You need to win, and you need to get fights. So look, he did what he had to do. Got signed back to Cage Warriors, obviously UFC. He went back there. He's won every fight since he's been back there. And now he's come back to the UFC, beat Jeremy Stephens, which is a good starter fight for him. And now he's against Oki, which, look, Jeremy Stephens, he beat by decision. I don't like that. I think you need to beat Jeremy Stephens if you want to be in the UFC nowadays. I think Jeremy Stephens, you need to get him out of there, especially now. If I'm talking right now, he's 39 years old, and he's looking for fights still, and he's still in the UFC. Fair enough, but look, his prime was gone. You need to be getting out of there if you think you're going to be top 15, which is the key point of being in the UFC. Is you want to be getting up to that top 15 spot. Oki lost against Duncan, which, to be honest, if you actually look into it, and this is the sort of last fight he won, but that Chris Duncan fight, he was doing really well. Found gaps in Duncan's defence. Also gets on top, just a tough loss where he's just basically inexperienced, just got trapped in a submission. It just went wrong way, got caught in a guillotine, just unlucky, and it never happened again. Honestly, it'll never happen again. He would have trained that out. It's just unlucky. He would have won that fight if he didn't get unlucky there, and just different way, different thought. In that moment, he would have been out and would have been winning the fight. So look, I think Oki gets this done, KO TKO. Striking, I think, is better by Oki, and will really show Mason isn't at the level for the UFC. I don't think he is. I think, look, you need to show, UFC have given you a fight where you can really make a statement against Jeremy Stephens, and you should be. The fact you haven't is scary to me going into the next fight when you've been signed to the UFC before. You haven't really made it. You went back to Cage Warriors. You won everything, and again, the level is so much higher, and just concerns me that that's happened. And look, it's a real tough one. It's a tough one. He's already, Mason Jones already 30 years old, and he's getting his second chance in the UFC. It just doesn't look good when Oki is there coming in contender series. He's 29 as well, but he's coming in from the contender series, and really showed in that, and really just has shown throughout ability to get fighters out of there, which is really key at this level. You need to be able to end it early at some point, just take the judges out of it. I think Oki gets it done by KO. On to the next fight, Modestas Bukauskas versus Paul Craig. Obviously, Paul Craig been in the UFC for a good long time now. He's very exciting fighter from Scotland. Done very well against a lot of the big time champions. There is a point where you go, if you lost against Paul Craig, you're probably going to win the championship at light heavyweight. 2 inches advantage for Bukauskas in this fight. But look, I think there is a playbook to beat Paul Craig now. I think last time he won it was 2023, which is quite severe, really. Looking hard to see how Craig gets this done. Bukauskas comes in on a 3-fight win streak. Last fight against Kutalaba. Kutalaba's obviously a good fighter, which showed a good ability to stay calm. But yeah, I think it's just tough. I think coming in with the confidence is key. And against a Paul Craig where people have shown you, especially when he's been in the UFC for so long, you've seen that many people win against him and beat him, especially recently. It's difficult to say that Paul Craig's going to get it done. I think it's going to be very difficult for him. I think on stand-up he's going to get absolutely caught quick. I don't think it lasts much at all. And he's only got chance on the ground. And really, Bukauskas will just be training for takedown defense. I think he's got Bukauskas waited a bit too much in the Kutalaba fight, which won't help him in this fight. He needs to get in there, get in the face of Paul Craig and get it done. He needs to press him back. He can't. He'll be looking for a takedown, but he'll stay calm, but he needs to get something on him. He doesn't want Paul Craig suddenly getting a takedown. You've had no offense in the whole round and Craig wins it just from controlling you. That would be really bad, and obviously how he could probably lose that fight. Bukauskas has to use get the 1-2s out there. They were very, very effective in his last fight against Kutalaba. He needs to use them again. I think it's a win. I think Bukauskas gets it done KO TKO. I think 1-2 hurts Craig. Craig goes for a takedown, defended, and he just gets and then he gets pushed back. He's against the fence. Shots get fired off. Bukauskas gets it done KO TKO. I think it's going to be very tough to Craig to win now against the opponents he's going to get, because he's quite a big name. People like to see him. I like to see him fight. But he is on a downward turn, and his last win in 2023, it's a tough one to change back against someone, especially someone like this who's got the confidence, is on a win streak. On to the next fight. Saint Denis versus Ruffy. 2 inches advantage on the feet. Reach advantage for Ruffy. Ruffy coming off a great performance last time out, and Saint Denis lost to Poirier and stopped his charge up the division. That was a couple fights ago, but I don't like Saint Denis' chance in this. I think Ruffy's just too dynamic. They're a very dynamic fighter. I think he's very fast. Slight McGregor style, the very fast speed, and this is like, back in the day, top performance, Eddie Alvarez type style, where it's fast, he's getting in and out. The jab is incredible, which McGregor sort of didn't have, but it's just so strong. It's very good. And look at Saint Denis' performances. Right hook by Poirier, loss. Won a decision after that. Moicano, eye injury stoppage, so lost against Moicano. Won last time out. It just really shows his whole, when I've looked through this, his record, and it's what I've seen. Once he gets to a certain level, he finds problems. I think St. Denis just a bit slow. He's got his hands up. He's up to defend. But when people are just too fast or too experienced for him, he really does find problems. And I think he will find problems in this fight. I think Ruffy is just too fast. He's too playful on the feet. Incredible striking. Some of the best we've seen out there, and some of the best we're currently seeing in the UFC. Keeps just an inch out of the way to throw counters, ready to do so. The heel kick against Green was flawless, incredible. He went for a hook. He pretended to go for a hook. Green puts his hand up, goes, "Oh, okay, let's get my hand up ready to defend the hook." The hook fake. He goes, "Okay, he's going to do something probably to the body or something." It's sort of what he got catered to do. Sort of what Ruffy was doing throughout the fight before, then just spun, bang, heel to the chin, gone. No follow-up shot needed. St. Denis is good, but I do think it will be a show. It'll be a show of Ruffy's style and really push him up that division, and be for me, he's one of the most entertaining fighters out there. He's an incredible striker, and he's someone who really shows that dynamic speed and counter ability, the slickness of striking that, look, that's what a lot of people, especially me as a fan, want to see in the UFC. They want to see that classy striker just outclass someone on the feet and just counter shot them and drop them and just really show that they're the better fighter on the feet. And it's something we've been lacking at that real top level recently, but I do think we might see it again very soon. If Ruffy wins this, he'll be getting up that division, but look, he's going to be a real problem for some of these, especially the older guys at the top end of the division. I think it's going to be a right problem. I think he could get title shots. I think he's just so dynamic. I think he's just so good on the feet. He doesn't need to use anything else currently, but I think, look, he's just his one shot power is so incredible, and he's got these spins, he's got these kicks, just an amazing ability he's got. But yeah, I think he gets it done. On to the final fight of the night, Imavov versus Barcelos. Very close matchup. I think really good for the middleweight division. Really shows who is sort of either won. Next fight is going to be a title fight, or one more. They might have to do a title eliminator, but basically whoever's going to get into a top 3 position in that division, I do think it's going to be a tough fight for both. Imavov, great win against Adesanya last time out, showed really good ability to beat a very good, very fast fighter, and really good at following a game plan, which was clear. Overhand right, great follow-up shots, very accurate shots to manage to get the finish. Stayed pressure on Adesanya to stay in boxing range to stop the kicks of Adesanya, where he'd probably have a disadvantage. Head movement was good as well to stop Adesanya getting stuff off to start pushing him back. I think it was just an incredible performance, to be honest. And I think Adesanya, he's not as good as what he was being champion, but I think he is still there. I think he is a good fighter still, and I think that was a real test, which he came through with flying colours. How much he must have listened to the game plan and the coaches. When you look it back, it's very good, and that's exactly what you need to be able to do at a real championship level. I think a great fighter who can follow a game plan, definitely, and a great fighter who's also got the power to put people down. Even Adesanya, who's took some very good shots over the years, got dropped with one punch. Barcelos, slick striker who is on a great win streak, facing Cannonier last time out, and has faced Paul Craig as well. I think great jab, leg kicks very good, will help him keep the distance against Imavov, and that's the key thing. If it gets in close, Imavov wins, and I think Barcelos, if he keeps it at range, he wins. I think keeping the distance with the jab and leg kicks will be the biggest test of this fight. I think he will get it done though. I think he will use that because it's such a strong, fast jab. I think Barcelos keeps the distance well, and if he gets too close, he does grapple, because he is very he doesn't really use it from what, especially recently in his recent fights. But look, he can grapple if needed. I think he could just clinch up, get a bit of grappling done, get out of there and get back to range and just really avoid the punching pressure in close from Imavov, which will be key to win the fight. I think that's very, very important that he does stay out of there. But look, he's probably going to be in a title eliminator after this fight if he does win it. Whoever wins it, to be honest, will get a title eliminator after this, I do believe. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.